What's going on, everybody? It's the RotoWire Sports Betting Podcast, a subsidiary, of course, of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Nick Whalen, John McKechnie here. It is Super Bowl week. I'm down in New Orleans. We're at Radio Row. Things are looking up, John. A lot of fun stuff going on here in New Orleans. You're at your home base in Georgia. Very much excited to get your thoughts on the Super Bowl, to talk through everything. We'll give you our leans on the game, of course. We'll talk totals. We'll talk props. We'll have it all coming for you. John, how are you, man?
Doing good. Excited to be on with you. It's cool that you're right there on the scene, man, on the street.
Oh, yeah.
Doing the pod. Love to see that. We're gonna have to get our video editing guys to give me some sort of palatial background to compete with what you've got going on. Perhaps like a Taj Mahal or something of the sort. But yeah, I'm gassed up, man. It's Super Bowl week. You're sort of just ready to put the gloves on and go. We still have a few more days to go until kickoff, of course. So we're all just itching for it. But I think you and I put our heads together on this one, and I think we got something good cooked up.
We got some bangers coming. I've been parading my list of props around Radio Row all week. I will continue to do so into Thursday and Friday. Listeners of this show, watchers of this video each week, we usually pick 3 games against the spread. We got a whole list of props. Be a little bit different, of course. We just got one game to focus on, but we'll give you our full breakdown of the Super Bowl and then give you those props to finish out the show. I'll ask you point blank, John, to start us off here. Who are you taking? Chiefs, 1.5 point favorites right now.
I'm taking the Chiefs. Both against the spread and obviously on the money line as well. It was funny. It's been funny listening to everyone's analysis, thinking my own thoughts about this game, and then listening to Jim Coventry's Super Bowl marathon today, where he's got guest after guest after guest, and it's like we've all been programmed to say the line. The line is, the Eagles have the better team. The Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. And Everyone has said that. Now everyone comes down differently on what it means to them exactly. And I did some thinking about this as well. Like the last 2 Super Bowls we have to draw from that both included the Chiefs, of course, and one of them included the Eagles. I think the same could have been said about both of those Super Bowls as well, where it's like, oh, the Chiefs, that didn't limp in, but you'd say you line up the 1-22 and you'd probably give the edge to the 49ers, or you'd give the edge to the Eagles. I think you could argue that, this is the weakest of the Chiefs' entrance into the Super Bowl of this, current dynasty. And you could argue that the Eagles are the best team that they've faced. So that's all scary. I think you stack it up position by position, unit by unit. You probably give the Eagles the edge in a lot of those spots. But Mahomes just has this ability to raise his game when it's time. I mean, we saw it in the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs hadn't scored 30 points all year. We were all mad about that for fantasy purposes and other purposes. But when he had to score 30 points, he did. And I just think that even with this ragtag bunch around him, the Tin Man version of Travis Kelce, Juju Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, like 2 guys that are on the smaller side of things, they just make it happen. And I think that we're going to see that happen once again on Sunday.
I feel the exact same way, John. I feel the exact same way. I'll put it to you this way. So last night I was at the Superdome for this big media production that they do, where all the players, they're up on the pulpits, and there's media scrums around everybody. Players are walking around. It was very cool. There were a lot of fans there, by the way. There had to be easily 10,000, maybe 20,000 fans there. Filled a lot of the lower bowl. The Eagles went first, and most of the kind of no-name players, so to speak, were just kind of roaming around. And then I believe they had 8 players who had their own little. I'll call it a throne that they could sit on for the assembled media. And, it's pretty obvious for the Eagles, right? It's like there's almost too many good players to pick from. Like, who gets those 8 spots? But with Kansas City, I was talking to people who were like, who are the 8 guys, right? It's like, obviously it's Mahomes, it's Kelce, and it's Chris Jones. But like DeAndre Hopkins got one of those spots. He who played 11 snaps in the AFC Championship game. So you're right. I mean, I think the Eagles are the better team. I think they're certainly the more talented team. They've been the more dominant team, the more impressive team throughout the regular season and really through the playoffs. Just put up 55 in the NFC title game, for crying out loud. And yet there's something about Kansas City, man. When they have to play their best game, they find a way to do it. I thought they did exactly that against Buffalo in the AFC Championship game. I didn't know that the Chiefs had a 32-point game in them. We had literally not seen that throughout the entire season. And look, when they needed to, they were essentially perfect throughout that game, other than the Mahomes fumble, other than the one third down failure in the second half. Other than that, the Chiefs played close to a perfect game. Now, I will say, what worries me a little bit is if this does turn into a higher scoring game, which I think it could, totals at 48.5 now, down a point from open. The Chiefs' lack of ability to generate explosive plays. The Eagles could do that in a number of ways. I think they're one of the biggest explosive play teams on the ground that I can remember. It still feels like there's more to unlock with A.J. Brown and Vontae Smith. But we know what they're capable of. I mean, Patrick Mahomes threw the ball more than 10 yards past the line of scrimmage 4 times in the AFC Championship game. It was the nickel and dime, getting these short passes out, running after the catch, and obviously Kansas City is great at that. But if they need to generate big chunk plays, can the Chiefs do that?
It's hard to say with absolute conviction based on the performance this season that they can. But again, it falls back on, who you're talking about. It starts with Patrick Mahomes. And if Andy Reid with 2 weeks to dial things up, and, I think they're going to be able to. And I think additionally, Xavier Worthy kind of coming into his own and really kind of having to have that baptism by fire this year, coming in, you think Hollywood Brown's going to have this big role as the free agent signing. Rashee Rice looked like the number one guy coming in, and we weren't privy to the knowledge that Travis Kelce would play quite the way that he did this year going in either. So Worthy kind of had to be the guy, and obviously it didn't result in a ton of explosives, but now the pressure's off him a little bit as far as like that sheer target volume goes, and he's also built up the trust with Mahomes. And the thing about Worthy coming into the draft and what we know about him from Texas, that guy generates explosives. Like that guy is someone with blistering combine record-breaking speed. So as long as Reid can dial that up, that's certainly an option for them to get explosives. And I think Hollywood Brown, despite being kind of misused at different points during his time with Baltimore and in Arizona, at his best, he's sort of what Xavier Worthy's supposed to be. This guy who maybe you target 6-7 times a game at most, but you're getting big chunks with it. So I think it's there on the table. It's a little bit sight unseen. You got to take a leap of faith a little bit because of what we've seen this year or not seen this year. But I think it's in the bag there for the Chiefs. I think they can tap into that if necessary.
What, if anything, do you think we see from DeAndre Hopkins in this game? Like I mentioned, barely used in the AFC Championship game, didn't have a major impact in the Houston game either in the divisional round. I've heard kind of two schools of thought here where it's like, man, maybe this is the spot. It would be so Chiefs, it would be so Hopkins to have a big game here. Do you think they've designed anything for him specifically, or is he just kind of being phased out and they trust, a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster a bit more right now?
I'm a little bit skeptical that he ends up being a major factor in this game. I think, he's someone that came in mid-season, and I guess, they gave him all the runway that they could. They went out of their way to go get him. They had these playoff games, this tight playoff game against the Bills, and still didn't really go to him. Why exactly would that change in the Super Bowl? I'm not totally sure, other than element of surprise. I don't know if that's enough for me to really like buy in on Hopkins props right now.
All right, we talked about the total, 48.5 right now, down from 49.5. Your thoughts there?
I'm taking the over. I know that there are two, solid schools of thought on how this is going to go. But I think a lot of the times, if you like the Chiefs, you do like the under. And I understand that, but I think that there's going to be enough scoring in this game to where we see this end up going over. Like I think there's going to be a back and forth element to this game. Maybe that first quarter maybe drags us a little bit behind the pace. But I think as Super Bowls, as we've seen in the past, like it can be a little bit stuck in the mud early on, and then things really open up in the second half. So I think I'd be interested in taking the first half under, second half over, see how that goes. A little live betting action to kind of cover my bases here, because it is difficult to firmly plant your flag on one side of this one going in. But I think my initial lean is to take the Chiefs and the over. It's not such a gigantic total that we're looking at here. I think a couple years back, I think that the Eagles-Chiefs game was posted at like 50. Last year was at 47. It hit that right on the dot. But I think that we've seen other times where you're being asked to cover a lot more points. You still have Patrick Mahomes in this one. You still have Saquon Barkley on the other side. I think that's going to be enough to get us over.
I think so too. And I've been asked a number of times this week, final score prediction. And in my mind, I don't think of this necessarily as an explosive, high scoring game. We have two really good defenses. We have two great defensive coordinators. You have a Chiefs team that is capable of scoring in the low 30s, but we'll see. They haven't done it very often. Obviously, Philly, went over the total by itself in the NFC Championship game, but I've kind of settled on this like 27-24 idea, Kansas City. And to me, it's like that doesn't seem that high scoring, but obviously that puts us over 48.5. So I will join you on the over 48.5 for this one. Let's go to the prop market, John. I know you have a bunch of props prepared. I got a whole list as well. I'll let you lead it off, your favorite props and your reasons why.
Okay, so I will give a quick shout to our guys behind the RotoWire picks and props tool. They guided my hand on the first couple of these. I like Jalen Hurts over 36.5 rushing yards. You can get that over at FanDuel. I like Jahan Dotson over 1/2 of a receiving yard. I think he gets involved at least once. It might just be a 1-yard touchdown, but hey, that would be enough. I like Juju Smith-Schuster over 16.5 receiving yards as well. I know that you kind of alluded to it earlier. He's been involved in this postseason. I think that continues in this particular spot. I think that where he runs his routes out of might be a bit of a weak spot in this Philadelphia secondary. So I think that he needs to have more than 16.5 yards. If he goes under, then I think the Chiefs, oddly enough, are in a fair amount of trouble. Now let's get weird, right? Because the Super Bowl is the pinnacle of weird prop betting. So, I figured we might as well go there. Will there be a walk-off field goal or walk-off kick? I know my score prediction and everything maybe paints it the other way, but the odds are enough to where this one's really close. I could see it. It's plus 650 over at DraftKings. And again, a walk-off kick means as time expires, no time left on the clock as it goes through the uprights. But I think it could happen. Plus 650. I like those odds there more than anything. So I'm willing to dabble on that. Both teams to record a sack. I'm saying no at plus 400. I'm interested in that one. I think that maybe there's a chance that Kansas City on the other side, and I know I'm back in Kansas City, but there's a lot of empirical evidence to like the Eagles in this spot. I think the pass rush is going to get home at least once for Philly, but I'm not so positive on this KC pass rush. Certainly not against this Eagles offensive line. So, and plus Jalen Hurts' mobility, his ability to escape sacks. Maybe at plus 400, I'm willing to take a look there. Is there going to be a missed kick? Yes, you got to play a ton of juice on that. It's minus 240, but I do think there is going to be a missed field goal or extra point in this one. Is there going to be a doink? Yes, the missed field goal or extra point will be a doink. Give me that at plus 550. It's fun to say doink, so why not? A defensive lineman for MVP. I'm kind of stealing this one from you from a couple weeks back, but that's for MVP. That's plus 2,500. An anytime touchdown parlay. Saquon Barkley, Travis Kelce, Jalen Hurts. That's 6-1. Nolan Smith over 0.25 sacks, so just needs a half sack. That's plus 104. Jalen Carter over 0.25 sacks. That's plus 118. And if you do like the Eagles, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down about the Chiefs, how about a Saquon 2 or more touchdowns plus the Philly money line? That gets you plus 470. That's how I'm lining it up.